All right, folks, we want to welcome you to another episode of The Road to Greatness. My name is Elton, and I'm with Chris Cook, my co-host, and I'm excited because we're trying something new here, and this is where we are in our cars. And me and Chris, we figured, hey, well, if the show is called On the Road to Greatness or The Road to Greatness, let's try it out in our car and let's see how that goes. So here we are. How's it going?
Pretty good over here. Under all the circumstances. How about you?
Well, this coronavirus, aka Rona, man, it has us all in a state. I'm telling you. I mean,
In the
being
tussy.
paranoid, afraid to
Yeah,
sneeze, afraid to
yeah.
cough, afraid of
I,
everything
w-
right now,
I
man.
woke up this morning with my throat a little dry, and I was like, oh no, like I was feeling a bit paranoid, and um, and then I realized, like, my wife, she puts the fan on like extra high, so that thing's like blowing all night. And then I
Uh
took a
huh.
drink of water. I took a drink of water. I was like, oh, okay, I'm all right. We're good.
You're alive and well.
But I can't even go in the grocery store, man, without even looking suspect. You know what I mean? Like the way
Yeah.
people look at each other now, and you know, everybody's just one step away, I think, from just
Mhm.
yeah.
Mhm.
But there's a lot of people, I think, that are in situations like worse than I, or that are actually going through it, or know somebody that has gone through it. I haven't experienced that or know anybody that has undergone it. Um, and I hope I don't. So I'm definitely keeping all our friends and families in prayers and stuff like that.
Yes, that's very important because there's a lot, like every day, a nurse, a doctor, a person who works, even a janitor at the hospital, and even, essential people that continue to make, life livable for us here, in
Yeah,
America.
yeah,
They they have a risk of not only catching the corona. I almost said the flu, but no, this is more serious. They have a risk of also infecting their family when they come home. So it's like it's not like the battlefront is, just okay. I'm going out to, this location and that's where it's gonna happen. You have the worry that you're bringing the battlefront to your home.
mm-hmm, yeah,
That's another dimension that, a lot of people, some people are aware of it, some people don't understand the gravity of that thought there, because it just, it's so complex. It's so complex because you're fighting something you cannot see.
right. Well, and the other
Yeah.
thing too is there's so much information out there. Like I go through
Yes.
Facebook, Instagram. When I'm listening to a podcast, I'm getting hit with everything COVID-19 and just stay home, and I'm getting hit with new research and conspiracy theories. And don't get me wrong, I actually love like conspiracy theories. I spent like 2 hours one morning watching a
Woo. My
bless
bad.
you
Hmm.
conspiracy video. I spent like 2 hours, and I was like, dang, this is, if this was happening, that's crazy. But I had to keep in mind that at the end of the day, it was just a story. There was no like
Yeah.
substantiated evidence, and I just can't spread that around. But um, there's just so much information, and there's so many people that don't understand in terms of, how quickly germs spread, and why we're in a government shutdown. Like, why we're not in a government shutdown, but why we're in just a stay home, nationwide, worldwide, almost shutdown. And people don't understand that. And it can be confusing because there's so
Hmm.
much going out there. And I think that, how true is that when it comes to just how we talk to people in general? Like,
Yeah.
it had me thinking, I was like, man, there's so much information out there. It was like, and I got to thinking, how similar is something like that in terms of our relationships with people and how we communicate with them?
Yeah.
It and and how well do we do it? How effectively do we do it? Because I firmly believe that communication is the biggest reason why we're in a lot of the mess that we're in today. Especially we're in the age of information, right? So
Yeah, yeah.
getting that information correctly and understanding where it comes from is vital.
Mhm. Mhm.
You know what I mean?
Oh yeah. I mean, I know like many times, like we're on Facebook. That's where, people get some news, Twitter, and etc. etc. But I saw this article that, hey, the fact that more people are home, the divorce rates are going up in a weird way. That means they must have somebody is not understanding, or there's some kind of communication that is not happening, or somebody's not speaking somebody's language, you know,
Mm-hmm.
which is
Mm-hmm.
really crazy because, I mean, wait, how are you married for so long and all of a sudden because you have to stay home now, it's like, what's going on here? Like,
Right.
you know, it makes you
Right.
wonder.
Yeah. I think one of the biggest things with that is that because you are actually home more, you're having to communicate more, and you don't know how to communicate with that person, and you know it's kind of hard to probably go get the help that you need. I know there's people that I know that have tried to reach out to like therapists and stuff so they can figure some things out, and they were like, I can't even. I gotta wait until like the shutdown's done. I can't even meet with anybody on Zoom. I was like,
Right.
really? Like they won't even, yeah, because I mean, and I get that. I think because you don't know who's in the room and listening, or so there's some confidentiality that could be a problem there.
Hmm.
And so I was like, wow, so you can't even get like the help you need until this is all, you know, come to a downward slope. So yeah, it's rough out there, and it had me thinking too, like, um, just you and I, like this podcast. Like we've been working on this podcast for about over a year now, and
Actually, I won't be surprised if it's over 2 years now.
three. Where do you get
Two,
three?
two, two, two.
Oh, two, maybe two.
Yeah.
Maybe two.
Hmm.
And I would say the biggest battle we've had is just the communication of it, the vision of it, how we communicate ideas and thoughts to each other. That's been the biggest battle because a lot of times instead of talking about the solution for the idea, we're just trying to convince each other why it's a good idea and why it's not, or we're not trying to convince each other at all. We're just on
And
a
even
tangent.
sometimes we're both saying the same thing, but in different ways. And it's like, man, that's what I'm trying to say. So why we spend all this time just trying to, say the same thing? You know what I mean? So
Right.
yeah.
Yeah. So a lot of time gets wasted in our communication, and it's like
Hmm.
we're trying to figure out a way to where it's like boom, boom, boom. I'm looking for a Kobe Shaq. Throw me the pass, I throw you the pass.
That
Hit
chemistry.
the bucket, hit the bucket. I'm looking for the assist, and
Yeah.
a lot of times, I can't just boom, boom. I gotta take it around the whole park. I gotta take it a little bit slower, come full circle, and so it's challenged me in terms of communicating and how I communicate with others because I see it that it is a point of where just because I know what I'm talking about doesn't mean that other people do, and so I have to like
Yeah.
in my mind I'm like, wait, I just said it, like how much clearer can I be? Like I don't know what else I could say like that's very clear,
Hmm.
but people just don't get it, and for whatever reason it may be they've got something else on their mind so they're not completely tuned in. It might be that I spoke too fast or I spoke too softly. It might be that I didn't even explain it that well,
But
as clear
but
as I
but
like.
the thing
What
about
happened the other day?
language is so complex. It's not just about body language or tone or whatever the case may be, but it
Right,
even comes with a person's background and experience, or how that works. There's
right.
so many things that factor into people, the way how they communicate.
Well, here's the thing that, like, case in point, what happened the other day. I sent you a text, right? I said, "Hey, yo, can we move it up to 1 o'clock? We'll do the meeting, and then we'll do cold calling." And I interpret it as that, all right, we'll do a meeting for RTG at 1 o'clock, and then at 2 o'clock, we'll do the calling. And you were like, okay, yeah, cool. And then later on, when we were talking about it, you were like, oh, wait, no, I thought we were just going to do the meeting, the cold calling at 1. And I was like, well, read the text. And you're like, I did. It's clear. I was like, well, so was mine. And it was like, and then you were
Mm-hmm.
saying, well, it didn't look clear to me. Maybe I didn't look at it clear enough. And I'm looking at it, it's like, well, dang, maybe I didn't write it clear enough either. Because I was like,
Right,
well, if you
right.
didn't understand it, why didn't you ask me a follow-up question? And why did you just say yes to it? And then you were like, well, because I understood how you wrote it. And I was like, well, yeah. So it was like this huge miscommunication thing on one little tiny word or left out word. And it was
Mm-hmm.
like, it almost started it almost started a little fight, because you were like, whoa, hold on a second here, wait, trying to protect your honor. And I was like, man, where is this coming from? Like, it doesn't even need to go that far. And so we both kind of stopped in our mid tracks and realized, oh wait, this is
Right.
really
And
just a matter of
that's
a
the
missed
beauty of
word here.
when we have worked for this long, we have come to the point where we understand, okay, this is going down a certain route and we can prevent it, because in communication you learn things. You learn each
Yeah,
other's what trigger, certain emotions or whatever the case may be. And that's why it's very important, in communication when you discover these things, hey, you have to sometimes know when to take a detour, even sometimes, when you have to be like, you know what, let's just table this, and we could come back to it, because like, okay, it doesn't profit us to go down this path if we can tackle this another time and still get a lot more done, but yeah, going back to that, yeah, a simple word that been left out, you know just because we always wanted to do the meeting. We even wanted to do the meeting from the day before. So, but I remember it was impressed upon us, and maybe because the times were so close, that we wanted to do the cold call, and I figured he was just moving up the cold call time, where we just do some cold calling, and that just threw me off. A
yeah.
simple thing we left off. Yeah.
Yeah, and I was actually trying to double it. I was like, so what I'm saying here, like later on, I was like, what I'm saying is that we're working from 1 to 3 instead of from 2 to 3. I was adding something in if it were
Hmm.
possible, and I remember saying like, well, you didn't have to say yes. Like, I was just asking if it was possible, and you were like,
Right,
well,
I remember. Hmm.
yeah. So yeah,
It's
it was a
sorry.
thing. It was a thing.
It's ironic you said that, because it reminded me of a lecture that I was at Walla Walla University, where I studied journalism, and it was like sometimes when asking a question, sometimes we ask two in the form of one question. Sometimes when you do that, that can confuse the interviewee,
Hmm.
or the person who is you're interviewing, basically, because I don't want to
Right,
get confused with the "ye" and the "your," you know what I mean?
right,
So she was like, so many times it's best if you just ask one question at a time.
yeah,
That way you get a much more, better response, and sometimes the second question you was hopefully going to merge get answered,
right.
down the road, but keeping it simple, that way you don't have to worry a lot about, oh, he only answered just one question. You keep it nice and easy,
Right. Like, it not, instead of asking, so do you have a problem with the new policies? And if you do have a problem with the new policies, how do you feel about them? It's like you're asking two
Yeah.
questions, like,
But
okay, I
sometimes it's
mean,
synonymous, right? The
yeah,
same
I mean,
question.
and you could answer, well,
Yeah.
no, I don't have a problem with the policies, and here's how I feel about them. But you get the point. Like, when you
Yeah.
ask so many questions in one, fell swoop. So, yeah,
Mhm.
communication is tough, and it can really slow people down and really keep people behind. And one of the things that I feel is super important about communication, and this is just where, because I studied journalism too, right? We came up with the same degree, same school. For those people who don't know, Walla Walla U,
In the
shout out,
house, go Wolves.
Wolves. And one of the things that I have always been willing to do is stick it out. Just stick it
Yeah.
through and do the hard thing, because I know I know better that it really is a matter of miscommunication, no matter how upset you are about it.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Most of the time, it is a matter of miscommunication or a lack of understanding, right? That's another thing, is sometimes things that are communicated are accurate, but the lack of understanding behind what's being communicated is getting interpreted from the other person as a negative thing, even though it's not. You just don't understand. You don't understand the full severity of it. And so, case in point, yeah, something that I think about is like those old movies, right? Like White Fang. You ever see White Fang?
No, I haven't.
So, quick synopsis is a great movie. It's about a guy. He meets this dog. They live on this, you know, plot of land together. They bond, and then it comes to a point where he just says, he doesn't belong with me. He belongs in the wild. And in his mind, you can see him making the decision. And so he just tells him to go. He's like, just go. And he starts throwing rocks at the dog. And the
Oh wow.
dog's like super confused. The dog's just like, what? Like, what is he doing? Like, they spent years together and he fed him and they bonded and they protected each other. To all of a sudden, he was telling him to go. And the thing is the dog didn't understand it, right? But us as a viewer could see, like, we could interpret that like, oh, how else are you going to get a dog to go? He needs to go. He's going to be happier out there in the wild. And what else are you going to do? If the dog could understand that side of it, then maybe he would have just gone. He would have made that
Mm-hmm.
decision. But and maybe that's a bad example, I don't know, but when you
No,
think about it on a human to
that's
context.
something important. Yeah. No,
Right.
I see a lot of value in that example there, because many times, you know, we can mean well, but what we do come across to the person as harmful, or misinterpreted. And
Right.
it's like, how, so no, I think that's a great example, because I mean, dogs, to some ways, they kind of learn to understand our language and what,
Hmm.
what we mean, you
Yeah.
know and and sometimes they sometimes, whether we know it or not, we speak their language in the way, how a hierarchy, because I begin watching a show where, they have this lady who goes around training dogs, and she was like, right now the dog is actually running thing because you allow it to, so
Yeah.
without you even, you don't understand why the dog do certain things, but because, of certain things,
Right.
so, it's like, man, how do we communicate effectively across the border? That's something there. And I mean, sometimes even, you know listen, even though all of us here speak English, hey, that don't always mean we still understand each other, because this is something that it will be shocking, but a word can mean several things, even though it's like one word, but it can be taken up as a different meaning somewhere else,
Right.
or a phrase or something. It's just
Right.
like, but we all speak one language, which is at least English, you
Yeah.
know
I think there was a phrase I said the other day on the phone with you, and you were like, what does that mean? I can't
right.
even remember what the phrase
I think
was,
it
and
was,
I was like, you
you
never
want to
heard
go
of
see a
that?
flick or something like that, and I was like, what was that? Oh, some,
Yeah, what's a flick or something? I don't know if that was it or not, but yeah, I mean, a big example, and one of the things that I've
because
always really enjoyed is being able to challenge myself in that way, to talking to various different people from various different backgrounds, because if you can do that, you expand yourself, you grow,
oh yeah.
right? As a
Hmm.
person, you grow because you start to realize that you break outside of your little bubble, right? Because there's a lot more to my perspective. And if I'm able to look at all the perspectives, I can come up with what I feel is a closer version to the truth.
Right, right.
as opposed to my truth. And there's this thing now, like speak my truth. I don't quite understand that. I do in a sense, because you're saying it's from your perspective, so therefore it's only true for you. But one of the things that I am only concerned about is looking at the truth, and and because in my mind that's how it works, right? It's like there's either it's going to be the truth or not, and whatever that may be, you know, a universal truth, like most people can't fly. I don't have to, you know, really question that unless,
Hmm.
somehow, you know, somebody from Austria, started flying. But,
Hmm.
for the most part, we understand that it's not true. And so it's just big for me in terms of communication, is figuring out what's true for other people, and does that qualify for me over here, and does that qualify for you over there, and and or should it, or does it matter? I don't know. Maybe it's too
But
complex.
you know,
Maybe.
you have a good point, because look at this way. That's what makes that's the mystery of the conspiracy, because it has a lot of layers of the truth. And because human beings know that just because you don't see it or you don't know of it doesn't mean it's not true. You
Right.
see? Because
Right.
there's something called the unknown.
Right.
Because you know, back in those days, long listen, what Captain think back in the day when media wasn't so easily accessible, so you rely on
Right.
people's stories. And who do you love to entertain? People who was well traveled, because they'll tell you about these lands far, far
Mm-hmm.
away that was
Mm-hmm.
pure gold, and it was called El
Things people
Dorado.
have never seen.
And they
Right.
had or about this person called Ali Baba, who was a great musician, and he does all kinds of wonders. And it's like it captivated your imaginations. You
Yeah.
don't know if it was true. You never even knew about these things, but
Yeah.
you believe this person because they see it. So all of a sudden, that was your belief. So
Mm-hmm.
it's like it's just like, man, it's crazy. It's just crazy
Yeah.
when
And
it
I think
comes
the
to getting the truth.
nuances. Sure, and nuances of communication involve so much more than just words,
Yes.
in the human condition. And so I think that's the biggest thing in like social media that has a hard time with the nuances of conversation. Because one of the things that like my wife does, I hate doing it, my wife will do it, is she looks at comments on videos, right? Like especially videos that are of controversy. And she'll look at comments and she'll read it, and she'll I'll just watch her on the phone going, oh, oh, oh,
That
no.
is funny.
Yeah.
I could see
And
it too. I could
yeah,
see Amber.
yeah, she'll just be like,
What? Is she
or she'll look at me
serious?
like, "Do you believe this?" And I'm like, "What are you talking about?" And so
You
she'll
like,
look
who
at
has
these
time for
comments.
that?
Right, but why I mention that is because you've got all these people commenting on the video, right? And everybody's coming from some place different, and they think
Right.
different, and they're not even able to really communicate that well via writing a message. They're just gonna write how they think, and it's gonna come off most of the time just brash, no subtlety, no respect, and sometimes that's just the case too. Just there's no respect to it at all, and maybe it's a lot easier to not respect a person that you can't
You
see, you don't really identify. I don't know.
you don't have a
I've never
connection with.
understood it.
Yeah.
Sure, yeah, I've never really understood it, and so I think that's the biggest thing. I think with social media is like trying to find the connection. It's like everybody's so connected to information, and yet we're not that connected. There's kind of a disconnect in other areas, and so you can't really have the best of both worlds. But yeah, it's confusing times,
But
and I think.
oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Go ahead, go
You
ahead.
know, it's ironic that you say that, because my cousin put an article on Facebook, and when I read it, I had to realize it. Excuse me, man. This coronavirus, when you feel a sneeze coming, it's
Salud.
like, Lord, don't make me sneeze, don't make me sneeze. But anyway,
Salud.
it's
Yo.
crazy, man. But he posted the
I feel like
article
I'm
and he
gonna
was
catch it
like,
through the phone.
yeah,
Yo.
whoa, hey, no time, hey, it's crazy, man, it's crazy. But I was gonna say, um, one thing that I noticed, he posted, he was like, in some ways, Corona has us at home, but it's a blessing in disguise because people now are living.
Yeah.
And he was like, if you look at what's missing or the stuff that are running out of Walmart, there's your answer. And
Hmm.
he posted some stuff that are now living. He was like, a lot of adult bicycles are missing now, or running
Hmm.
scarce. A lot of board games in the gaming section, Uno. So that, which tells you people are more spending quality time at home with their
Yeah.
family, building
Yeah.
relationships. And he was like, a lot of cooking stuff, which means people are now cooking more at home
Yeah.
as they're supposed to.
Yeah.
And that, that says a lot. So he was like, before pre-corona, pre-COVID-19, people literally was working to live, like, or living to
Yeah.
work, you
Yeah.
know. And now people are actually living post COVID-19.
Hmm.
And I was like, he has a valid point because even right here in Washington, where I live, I'm seeing more people, families going on walks, going out with a dog, playing games. Now, keep in mind, they are practicing social distancing, but with the family, they're doing more stuff to maintain a healthy body. You understand? Because it is recommended that you get fresh air, which actually helps
Yeah.
keep you healthy. So kudos to those families that are doing both, practicing social distancing and also getting their exercise and that quality time outdoors. Kudos to
Yeah.
that. And I'm noticing that, and it had me even appreciating that the world is going back to a good state. LA now, you can see across the valley. There's not much,
Yeah.
pollution,
Yeah.
hovering over. China, you could actually take in a good whiff, and we're not worried about catching any other, for people who has asthma and stuff like that. You don't have to worry about
Yeah.
that.
Yeah. Yeah, it's weird kind of how we're built. Like sometimes it takes something physical for really to get us to some of us to stop or start. And what I mean by that is like even just catching a cold, right? Like before this whole COVID-19 hit, I remember like if I was going super hard and I caught a cold and I was down for a couple days, I would
Hmm.
just be down, and it was kind of like nice in a sense. It was like, man, it's just a breath of fresh air, and I would actually take the time to like talk more with my family and just be. I was
Right.
more present. You know what I mean? More present. I didn't have the thoughts of, oh, I gotta go get this done. I gotta go get this done. My thought was like, man, I'm not going anywhere and I'm not doing
Correct.
anything. I'm staying right here. And as much as tragic as a lot of these deaths are, I do see a silver lining to it. And
Oh yes.
yeah, and one of the things too is like in terms of like how what I've kind of come to, what I think about like death too, and not to be like morbid, but in my mind I've kind of come to this realization where it's like either it's your time or it's not. Because one
Right.
of the things that I'm a my faith is really important, so I kind of always have come to believe that if it's your time, it's your time. If it's not, it's not, and you're gonna get through it. And I think, how am I still here if it weren't for my ancestors who got through things before?
Hmm.
Right? They had to get through it too. There was things that they had to get through, things in their life they had to overcome and work through. And it's like I'm thankful for that. And I know that there's so much in my mind and in my heart that I need to get
Hmm.
done and prepare for that. In my mind, I'm like, I'm not ready. So
Right.
I'm not necessarily like super scared in that sense, but I
Yeah.
am in the sense of unfinished work in that sense. And so I try to communicate that best to people when I talk to like my wife about it, or I talk to you or other family members. Is like, If it's not your time, it's not your time. Like, you just gotta
Yeah.
have faith, but don't like do it. This is like some people who take it way extreme, where they're like, "Well, we believe in Jesus, so now we're gonna all come to church and gather." It's like, all right, well, don't be
You know, the
foolish. You know
Bible
what I mean?
speaks clearly on this. You must be wise as a serpent, but harmless like a dove. You know, He gave us common sense, He gave us a brain, and even though sometimes I don't always use my head, but it's well encouraged
Yeah,
because at the end of the day, we have what you call freedom of choice.
yeah.
So that plays a big factor in our day-to-day lives.
And maybe that's why we're in the shutdown that we're in, is because of the freedom of choice. There's a good proportion amount of people who don't make good choices.
There's a lot of dilemmas. That's what yeah, you're so
Right,
right.
right. You
Hmm.
know what I mean? And so it really slows that process down.
It's like like you, man. Don't you hate it when somebody do something really stupid and now because of that they make a rule that affects everybody, such as TSA. You have to now take off your shoe and this and that because somebody had the smart idea to make a thing that could hurt many people out of a
Right,
liquid or they put it on their
right,
body, and now they have everybody doing a strip show for $3.99 for these people.
right.
You know what I mean? This ain't right. This ain't right,
Plums
man.
and
And
thumbs. Plums and
you know what I
thumbs.
mean? And what is that communicating? It shows that people have a
Yo.
state of they don't care. They don't
Yeah.
care.
Yeah.
Because if people do care, listen, there's a lot can be said with what we do say and what we don't say, but our action
Right.
speaks louder than words. Those are
For
phrases that I
real.
grew up hearing, and this, it's like it's not what you say, it's how you said it. You see what I mean?
And here's what really, like, you mentioned the TSA, and I'm just gonna go on a tangent, but that really just ticks me off because I
We love
promise
you
you,
though. For those who
every
work for
time I go
TSA,
through the TSA, every time I go through, I promise you, I just bought a brand new thing of toothpaste and I forgot, and then they take that joint, and I'm like, yeah, why didn't I just wait
uh,
till I got to my destination? Why did I have to buy the big bottle of toothpaste? And then I
it
wonder, what
was
do they do
always
with that?
cheaper
Do
too.
they
You had
take
a
my
good deal.
toothpaste?
And they do it with such a non-care attitude. They don't even tell you sorry. They feel like they're entitled that you brought it to them. Oh
They
my
don't tell
goodness.
you sorry because I know that they're gonna take it. They take it home and they've got, yeah. So you TSAs, we appreciate you. All right, we know you're just doing your job. Um,
Yeah.
it's rough. And that's another thing too. Like when you think about communication, right? So TSAs, and you said like it seems like they don't even care and dot dot dot. Um, Yet not every TSA I've ever met is like that, right? But you look at like other people too, in terms of not caring. I remember there was a situation where I was at work and I was doing something like I had my own mind going on in my own world, and she was like, "Hey, is there a customer out there for dot dot dot?" And I'm looking for a human being, because how I perceived it, and I'm like, "No, there's nobody out here." And she looks at me and just goes, "Ugh." And she goes around, she grabs this like bag with the customer name on it. And I was like, "Oh, hey, I'm sorry, I didn't know you were talking about a bag." And she was like, "Well, what else am I be talking about?" And I was like, "I thought you were talking about a customer,
Oh
but
man.
okay." And then so it kind of like set me off for a second. And instead of like going off on her, I actually stopped her ahead of time and I said, "Hey, I wanted to ask you something." And she said, "Oh, what's up?" And I said, "Well, I was curious why you chose to respond to me the way that you did." And she was like, "About what?" And I was like, "Well, about the bag and the customer." She's like, "Oh, you know what? I had so many things going on. I was getting hit on the drive-through front because this was for the restaurant, and um, yeah, I'm sorry." She just said she was sorry, and I was like, "Oh, it's cool. I just was really trying to figure it out because I thought you were saying," and so it really gave us a chance to like explain ourselves, like, because I didn't know what was going on her end, and she didn't know what was going on my end, and so that goes back into that, you know, the ability to dig a little deeper, to understand, to get the story behind the story. That's something I'm always also really big about, is getting that extra information. There's a lot of things about me that I wish that I could present differently so that people would quote unquote like me.
accept you
It's like, man,
more.
if they
Yeah.
only knew that what I had to go through here, then I wouldn't act like that. Or if they only knew, and it's like, but you can't please everybody, and not everybody has that will or the stamina to dig deeper and the patience to stick it out. And I
Hmm.
think that comes, I have a genuine care, I think, for humanity, for people. And I genuinely,
Yeah.
I don't just
That is
push
so
anybody
true.
to the side. You know what I mean?
That's so true. That is so true.
Yeah.
You know, I've I've been, and it's time of crisis. You see who, the people. Not you see people who care comes out of, and do action. I remember Fred Rogers, aka Mr. Rogers from the notable show.
Beautiful day in the neighborhood.
Yep,
Yeah.
Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood.
Yeah.
He said, when you see times of crisis, you see the real heroes come out. Look for the helpers, the people who come out and help and look out for the well-being of others.
Yeah.
Those are the real heroes, and those
Yeah.
heroes comes in the form of doctors again, nurses, food drivers, people who
Yeah.
are looking out for the elderlies who cannot go out
Yeah.
of their home, people who are going out and making sure, just because grandma cannot get her groceries, I can get it for her because I'm much younger and I have
Yeah.
a much more stronger immune system. They're the ones that are doing it. They're creating the lifestyle that the person knows to continue that consistency of where they're still comfortable. Even though in the midst of all of this, it's still a strain, but they're the one that are making the mask for
Mm-hmm.
others during this mass shortage. They're donating
Noni's
it.
alterations.
That's right.
Big shout outs
Known
to
these
Noni's
alterations,
alterations.
people like her who are helping the community. You know, these are the people that are sticking on the road to greatness, making sure that people comes first. Because at the end of the day, it's people that makes the world go round,
Yeah. Yeah, and
not
what I liked
money.
about
Not
Noni's alterations was that you were telling me that she was basically just like, you know what, I'm just gonna lay low. I'm old. I'm
even though
older now. I'm gonna
she
retire.
practically was forced into retirement. Yeah,
Yeah, and then they hit her with the, hey, we need this. We're having a mask shortage. We need these amount of masks, and she was like, all right, yeah,
she
here we
sprung
go.
into action.
She
Yeah,
sprung it back in, and I thought, man, that's really great, and that's a story that, you know, you do get to hear if you're looking for it,
yeah,
and there's a lot of people out here that are willing to jump in and help, and it really does, really put my faith back into um,
humanity.
humanity in terms of just we can rise above. You know what I mean? We can
Yeah,
definitely meet the expectations that I think we have of other people. We can meet that of us of ourselves in terms
yeah,
of the good qualities that I know we all possess, and we just need to strengthen and hone in. And it's crucial. It's super crucial. It's like one of the things that had me confused was when the ban first came in place was why is there a shortage of these things
mask.
anyways?
Yeah,
Why, or
and
masks and
ventilators and everything like that.
right, like
Why?
what is happening to that extent? Obviously, like we were hit with something on a mass level that nobody was prepared for. So there's going to be
Right, and I think
shortages.
that's the key right there, preparedness. Because here's the thing, as Americans, and I can say that because I'm one, we have a tendency of just thinking, oh, it's happening over there, but it's never going to
Yeah.
happen over here. You see what I mean? And I think that's
Right.
what happened many times in the month of January, December. Oh, we hear about this mass vast disease that's going around over there, aka China, Europe, and all these other places. And we was like, I don't need to worry about that. Not knowing it was already amongst us. It
Mm-hmm.
was already here, but
Mm-hmm.
not in that great quantity as it is now. Because I'm hearing stories of people who had this certain common cold, but was a lot more serious than the common cold, and the doctors didn't know, so they just call it a cold. You see what
Right.
I mean? And
Right.
now that China, it broke, and we heard about it, and there's a lot of conspiracy theories. So I don't even want to go down the road too much, because somebody could say, "Oh, you're wrong on this." So we heard about this disease that come out from allegedly China, you know,
Yeah.
but now it's over here. People was like, we wasn't ready. Now it's because probably at that time we were more focusing on aiding, helping, and not worrying about taking proper precautions and defending our own home line. And
Yeah.
that's one of the reasons for that.
Yeah, you mentioned like conspiracy theories and stuff. Like, I actually, I will entertain those thoughts. I don't ever take them to heart to the extent of
But
where
you don't
some
take them
might,
lightly either.
but I don't take them lightly either. Like, I
Hmm.
will listen. I will hear people out, and a lot of things have come my direction in terms of 5G, the Trump administration, politics, and that's not really what we do in this podcast. But what we
Right.
do is what we do talk about is respect. And one of the things that, whether I may agree or may not agree with you, one of the things that I will always strive to do is to at least show you the respect that you're deserved, and that's
Hmm.
to be heard. That's to be, heard. And if you truly believe, right? So, for instance, people who believe that it's not a sickness, if you truly believe that, more power to you. But you should still respect others who do. So you shouldn't be going up and giving people hugs and daps and stuff like that,
Hmm.
and disrespecting those people if they truly believe that this is a thing. And I think that there's enough people getting sick to where it's like you have to also take that into account, that people are still getting hurt, people are still dying, and
Yes.
in the midst of your agenda, just respect the fact that life is fragile. That's one thing that I think a lot of people are at least getting from this, is that life is fragile. And if you hadn't like, one of the things that we were always getting started was our biggest like hit when we put out our first episode: get started on something, because
Yeah.
you don't know when that storm is gonna hit. You don't know when you're gonna get put in a pandemic. So it's like, you get started on your marriage now. Don't wait till you get locked indoors. Get started,
Yeah.
on that thing that you wanted to complete, so that when you're
Or that
locked
dream you
in,
wanted to go after, get started. Even if it's
get
just start
started.
gathering information for you to get this thing going. You know,
Right.
I look at this virus as a silver lining in the fact that it's at levels the playing field now for
Yeah.
a lot of businesses. A lot of the great giants that was dominating are now brought to the heels, or brought down low, to the fact where now somebody who was at the low point can be equals with the big giants and start their business, and even
Yeah.
qualify for help, aid from
Yeah.
the government to help build back this economy that has taken
Yeah.
a big hit. you know
Yeah, and I don't know if that's running low or not. I saw an article where it was
yeah,
those
it
those
actually
funds or
ran
resources
out.
were running out.
I think last week Friday. The reason why I know this, because one of my friends who's an entrepreneur, I filed for it, and it was like, "Oops, sorry, it just
Yeah,
ran out."
yeah,
It's
and it's
unfortunate,
important. So
but
it's important not to put stuff off. It's like,
yeah, you
for
got that
instance,
right.
it's like, we actually just cleaned out my daughter's room yesterday. She's got all this stuff, all these toys, and I was like, oh man, like, I just, I'm so tired of the clutter. Like, one of the things that I can't operate in clutter very well, and so it starts to agitate my mood a little bit. I don't know why, but it does. It gets on my nerves, and so I just, like, I started it, and then I needed to check some emails, and then my wife finished it, and I was like, hey, just put this stuff over here. I want to just sell it. She's like, let's just throw it away. And I was like, what a waste. But long story short, that's another thing, communication right there, right? Like,
Hmm.
two different people thinking to do with two different things. Like, I want to
Hmm.
sell it. She wants to throw it away. I think it's a waste. She thinks it's a waste of time. And I'm like, we all have different priorities, don't we, in terms of what we
Oh
value.
yeah.
And so you still got to respect that. We were able to compromise. I was able to say, like, you know what, I'm gonna, I'll sell it. You just, put everything that you want to throw away. I'll deal with it. You don't even.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, let it. I'm cool with it sitting over here for a month or so till we get rid of it all. And then, my thought is if we sell it, then we can take the money and all the things that we'd like to get for our daughter or for other people or whatever. We can use that money instead of whatever money we already have coming in. It's
Mm-hmm.
just a better use, I think, of resources. And I'm not even talking about charging that much because stores aren't open, right? So
Yeah.
there's kids out there who probably could use some baby clothes and stuff like that. It's like $2-3. I'm sure we could figure something out. If somebody truly needed it and didn't have any money, I'd give it away. You know what I mean? Like it's up to my discretion and whatever the Spirit's calling me to do, in terms of what God's calling me to do. But that's kind of how I was thinking. But long story short, to come back around to it, in terms of putting stuff off, my wife got everything in the corner or whatever, and I tend to put stuff off. And I could do that. And I thought to myself this morning, I said, you know what, I better get that stuff upline on Facebook
Yeah.
ASAP, because she got it in the corner ASAP. So I better not put it off a week before I said I was gonna put it up. So I know that I'm gonna have to do that. And that's important, because the moment I don't take care of it, it's sitting in the corner, not getting dealt with. We're not getting, any money out of it. It's not creating any source of value. There's no value in it just sitting in the corner. And likewise, there's things that you want to do. There's things that you want to try that you've invested in and you haven't taken the opportunity. There's marriages that you're invested in and you haven't invested in fully. This is the time
Yeah.
to do it, because
This is the
otherwise,
yeah.
what are you
Mm-hmm.
doing? It's a waste.
Yeah.
It's a waste. What are you doing? Take advantage of this time while you have it.
Mm-hmm.
Respect the boundaries, enjoy it as best as you can, you know, and just try to help others. There's
Mm-hmm.
still so many opportunities to help others during this time, because we don't know what they're going through. We don't know if they just got laid off, if they're on their last meal or whatever. And so
Yeah.
I know at RTG we really try to think about that. And trust me, like, to our listeners, we really, really talk about ways that we can try to bless the
Yeah.
people.
We
This is
definitely do.
as much as we would like to see ourselves blessed, we already know that it takes the action of blessing others in order to get blessed. Like, that's what the Bible says. You store your treasures up in heaven, not down here. Down here it diminishes. Up in heaven is where you're gonna get it. And so we truly believe that here.
Mm-hmm. That is so true. I know, to the point where we actually think of people like, what are we going to discuss that can help people lift up their spirits,
Yeah.
and just take their mind off of this, but look at things in a positive way, because we are so bombarded with so many negative news that make us paranoid, make us to the point where we think of in a selfish way. I better stay home. I better clean up the shelves, get all my supplies just in case doomsday happen. And
Mm-hmm.
it make us behave in such it makes us behave in a way where we don't care for others, you know that
Mm-hmm.
that that's why we wanted to do something that, in a different, not to say that the news people are not doing their job, but bring light to it for some people who are just in a dark world right now, and
Yeah.
saying, hey, we will get through this. Not only that, we'll be all right.
Yeah.
And as long as we care for others, which means we respect each other's space, we are considerate of others, man, this can be such a beautiful time spent to create friendship and relationship, reconnect and rekindle a relationship that has probably gone astray, and also maintain relationships that we already have, and possibly even with in a respectful way cut off a relationship that is harming us.
Mm-hmm.
We need to look at that aspect too, because we have to be considerate to ourselves too. you know.
Yeah.
So with all that being said, I mean, we have to learn how to communicate with with our surroundings, even the world, as we know it, because now I hope we don't just go back polluting this place. We have to now see, okay, if we just give the earth a time to catch up, look how beautiful it can be. Look at the weather, it's so blue. This is something we take for granted, but in other parts of the world, they're now getting to see a beautiful day and seeing across, like in Los Angeles, they're finally getting to see across the basin. Or in China, they're finally able to take a deep breath in without worrying about the harmful pollutions that are going inside of them. We now
Yeah.
have to take care and be considerate of our surroundings also
Yeah.
on this earth.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
why you should go solar. A little
Yeah.
pond in there, go green. I help people go green. That's why I said that. But yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. No, and I mean, and that's just the thing is if you look at it now, the one thing that definitely hasn't slowed down is communication, right? Like
That has
Zoom,
gone
it
way up, yeah.
is gone way up.
Hmm.
Our podcast went all the way up. We were able to put out so many more episodes at that point.
Oh, yeah.
And other people I've noticed are taking advantage of this time and they're putting out projects and things like that. But communication has gone way up, and it's been refreshing to a point. It's been nice to see the sense of community that people are trying to build. I think that's where a lot of the fear I think stimulates is lack of community. If you
Hmm.
feel like you're alone in the battle, you're gonna feel super small in a big problem. But when you feel like you actually got people behind you and in a community that's gonna rock with you,
Yeah.
and help support you, regardless of the situation, you can feel good about that. And that's one thing that I always, tell my clients like that I work with is they say, well, how much you wanting to charge and that like that. I said, well, look, I'm not looking to charge that much. I would like to get something for my time, but my biggest thing right now is I want to build relationships in this community, because if I can build relationships in this community, I can show everybody that there's a sense of value that they can gain from each other. Like people can help each other. There's enough to go around. So if you're worried about money, there's enough to go around to help each other.
Hmm.
Zzz, there a bee? You got a bee in the car?
Come again?
You got a bee in the car?
No, my alarm just went off. That's why.
You got a bumblebee? Well, look at that, ladies and gentlemen. My guy is up before the alarm went off.
No, 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 no. This was for an appointment that I have. That's why.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. This
I
was
got you.
a previous appointment, not today. I have a bumblebee in the car or outside. You mean? I
No,
think it's
the
outside.
phone. When the phone
Uh,
was ringing, I was like, "Oh, you got to be in the car."
oh! I see what you're saying.
Yeah, yeah,
Oh, okay.
yeah, yeah. You're good. You're good.
Mhm.
But no, I mean seriously, you know, there's a lot of communication out there, good and bad. I just really want to challenge people to stick
Mhm.
with it. Don't give up. Try to show respect for one another, because when you can respect the other person, you're really gonna get
Mhm.
an understanding of where they're coming from, regardless if you think of what they're saying is valid or not. That's the
Right.
biggest thing, is just respect. You know what I mean? Don't be the type to, you know, disregard people because you don't like what they're saying, or whatever. You're not always gonna like what people are saying. And sometimes that even says something to the truth. The truth, when I talk about the truth, you're not always gonna like it, but it is the
Mhm.
truth. And if you can, that's one thing where it's like, if I've got people calling me out on my actions, I'm like, okay, then I used to get offended and be like, well, I'm doing this and I'm doing so much. And it's like, but all that is somebody telling me, but you're sliding here. And if you're trying to be better, this is where you can be better. Right? Because I used to take it offensively and I used to just be like, well, I'm doing so much right here. And they're like, yeah, but you're missing this. and we're feeling it. You know what I mean? So it's like I gotta take that into acknowledgement and be like, I gotta fix that. So I know that, when you and I talk together, whenever I'm saying, hey, you gotta do this, it could come off as like you don't agree with it, or there's something that I'm not understanding, but it is coming from a place of just wanting us, the people that I'm in a relationship with, to just continue to be better. And I am willing to take the same response, like the same
That's a good
criticism.
point there. Because, I know usually we don't do our recordings in the morning, at least, early in the morning. But, when he was like, hey, can you do it at 9? Even though I know that's not my best optimal time for me, I have to say, like, man, what can I do that'll make his life a lot easier? So instead, it's not all about me. If we lived in a world where it's not all about like that I mentality, as they would say,
Right.
you know, and that's why I was like, even though I don't feel like it, let's do it. You know.
Well, this is the only I mentality I have right now. And I'm sure you have got things to do today.
Yes, sir.
It's
Yes,
been a
sir.
great episode, you guys. Man, we got our YouTube channel up. We've got our Facebook up, our Instagram. All of them are connected. I'm going to throw the links down below. Please subscribe to the YouTube channel. We got like 4 subscribers. I'm still aiming for 20. I wanted 20 on opening day. And I know that it's super easy to just click that button. All right, do us a favor. Share this episode. Share with your friends. You can follow us on Spotify as well. That's really nice too. If you got something to play it on in the car, you can stop and go, because I know these episodes are almost about an hour long.
Just about.
Yeah, our next episode is going to be great. We're going to be sitting down and telling you a really good story about a friend of ours. And so we don't want to say too much just yet, but I think you guys are going to want to tune in. And we're just so thankful, man. Thanks for rocking with us. And until next time,
We'll see you on the road to greatness. Bye bye now.